At an art gallery filled with conversations and critiques, one comment stood out. It wasn't because it was cruel or condescending, but because it was brutally honest. So honest that it changed everything when Maya pointed out a flaw in the otherwise mesmerizing painting. She didn't expect the artist to take her seriously, nor did she imagine that one brief encounter would lead to a creative partnership that would reshape both of their lives. What started as a casual remark turned into a journey neither of them could have predicted. It was a brisk evening in the city, and the local art scene was buzzing. The gallery's white walls were lined with paintings, each more abstract than the next, as the city's most elite patrons mingled with aspiring artists. The exhibition was a showcase of contemporary works, and among the crowd, Maya wandered alone, her sharp eyes analyzing each piece. Maya wasn't an artist herself, at least not in the traditional sense. She worked in marketing, but art had always been a passion, something she studied on the side. She had a knack for dissecting visual elements, for seeing what others often missed. It was a hobby, nothing more. But tonight, that hobby would push her down a path she never expected. Across the room stood Daniel, a young artist on the brink of giving up. He had spent years pouring his heart into his work, but the recognition he craved had always eluded him. Tonight was supposed to be different. This gallery had promised him exposure, a chance to finally break through the noise. Yet as the night wore on, Daniel found himself standing near his painting, eavesdropping on quiet comments from guests who admired his work, but moved on without a second glance. The painting that hung before him was one of his best, a large canvas filled with swirling colors and raw emotion. Titled The Silent Echo, it was a reflection of his inner turmoil, a piece that meant everything to him. But despite the complexity of the artwork, no one seemed to linger long enough to fully appreciate it. Daniel's frustration grew with each passing minute. Maya, on the other hand, stopped in front of The Silent Echo, her eyes narrowing as she took in the vibrant strokes. There was something about it that caught her attention, something powerful, but not quite complete. She studied it carefully, her mind racing as she tried to pinpoint what was bothering her. Without realizing it, she spoke her thoughts aloud. It's almost perfect, but the contrast is off. The darker tones overpower the subtleties. It feels like it's drowning the emotion rather than highlighting it. Daniel, who had been standing nearby, overheard her critique. He bristled at first, defensive of his work, but there was something in her voice, an honesty not meant to insult, but to offer insight. He hesitated, unsure whether to respond or simply let her walk away. But curiosity got the better of him. "What would you have done differently?" Daniel asked, stepping forward. Maya turned, surprised to find the artist himself standing before her. For a moment, she considered apologizing, but instead, she met his gaze directly. "I didn't mean to offend you," she began, "but I think the piece is trying to say something, and it's not quite getting there. The contrast is too harsh. It needs more balance to let the emotion breathe." Daniel stared at her, a mixture of irritation and intrigue playing across his face. No one had spoken to him like that about his work before, especially not a stranger. Most people either praised his paintings or dismissed them. Maya's words, however, struck a chord, because deep down, he knew she was right. "Maybe you're onto something," Daniel admitted slowly. "I was struggling with that part of the piece." Maya raised an eyebrow, surprised by his openness. "Why didn't you adjust it then?" He shrugged, glancing at the painting with a look of frustration. "I wasn't sure how. I guess I got stuck in my own head." There was a pause as they both looked at the painting. the energy between them shifting. Maya could sense something in Daniel, a spark of potential that hadn't yet been fully realized. And though she had never considered herself a part of the art world beyond appreciation, she couldn't shake the feeling that she could help him. "Have you ever collaborated with anyone before?" she asked, almost without thinking. Daniel frowned, confused by the question. "No, not really. I've always worked alone." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "What if you didn't? What if you had a different perspective to push your work further?" Daniel studied her for a moment, unsure of where this was going. "Are you offering to help?" Maya hesitated, wondering if she had just overstepped. But there was something in her that felt compelled to follow this impulse. "I'm not an artist," she clarified, "but I have an eye for composition. Maybe I could help you refine your ideas, offer feedback, help you see things from a different angle." It was an unusual proposition, and Daniel had every reason to say no. After all, who was this woman to critique his work? But something about her confidence, her unfiltered honesty, intrigued him. He had been stuck for so long, trapped in his own creative blocks. Maybe what he needed was exactly what she was offering. Someone to shake up his perspective. "All right," Daniel said finally, a small smile playing on his lips. "Let's see what we can do together." Their partnership began slowly, with hesitant meetings at Daniel's studio. At first, they clashed. Maya's blunt feedback often rubbed Daniel the wrong way, and Daniel's reluctance to change his approach frustrated Maya. But as they continued to work together, something began to shift. Maya's critiques pushed Daniel to rethink his choices, while Daniel's passion for his art reignited Maya's creativity in ways she hadn't expected. They would spend hours discussing the meaning behind each piece, debating the smallest details of color and texture. And slowly, the walls between them began to crumble. One evening, after weeks of refining the silent echo together, they stood back and looked at the completed work. The changes they had made were subtle but powerful. The contrast was balanced, the emotional depth more pronounced. The painting felt alive in a way it hadn't before. "You were right," Daniel admitted, his voice soft. "The painting needed balance." Maya smiled, feeling a sense of pride not just for the work, but for what they had accomplished together. "It's your vision," she said. "I just helped you see it more clearly." From that moment on, their collaboration deepened. Daniel began incorporating Maya's feedback into all his new projects, while Maya found herself increasingly drawn into the world of art. They started experimenting with different styles, blending Daniel's raw talent with Maya's sharp eye for detail. Each piece they created together felt more powerful than the last. Word of their collaboration spread quickly through the art community. Critics praised the evolution of Daniel's work, noting the newfound depth and complexity in his pieces. Galleries began clamoring for his new collections, and soon, both Daniel and Maya found themselves thrust into the spotlight. As their professional lives soared, so did their personal connection. Late nights in the studio turned into long conversations over coffee, where they shared stories of their pasts, their fears, and their dreams for the future. Maya discovered that Daniel's passion for art came from a deep desire to express the emotions he could never put into words, while Daniel learned that Maya had always wanted to be more than just a bystander in the creative world. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, but with that closeness came new challenges. Fame brought pressure, and the demands of their rising careers began to take a toll. Maya struggled to balance her marketing job with her newfound role as a creative partner, while Daniel wrestled with the expectations placed on him by critics and galleries. Tensions flared as they navigated the complexities of their success, and for the first time since they had started working together, cracks began to form in their partnership. Maya's blunt critiques, which had once been a source of growth, now felt like sharp edges, and Daniel's creative stubbornness began to push Maya away. One night, after a particularly heated argument about a piece they were working on, Maya stormed out of the studio, leaving Daniel alone with his unfinished canvas. For the first time in months, they didn't speak the next day, or the day after that. The silence between them stretched on, and both Maya and Daniel were left to wonder if their partnership, the thing that had propelled them to such heights, was now the very thing that could tear them apart. But even as they stood on the edge of uncertainty, one question lingered. Could they find a way to balance their creative differences and preserve the connection that had changed both of their lives forever? Only time and their next move would reveal the answer.